So continuing our talk on the Second Amendment. Last video I mentioned some of the limits that might be imposed on the Second Amendment and what some of the belief structure was when the Second Amendment was written. I'm not going to go like in too much of an originalist look at what the Second Amendment means. And if you're an originalist, it means you believe that the laws mean the original intent of what the writers meant when they wrote them, and that they're not really as subject to interpretation as other laws. So there are some people who believe that the Second Amendment is what protects them from the tyranny of the government, and that in case of a very intrusive government, they would be able to use their Second Amendment rights in order to force the government to go back down. I don't necessarily agree with that viewpoint. I've talked about this with students before. I've talked about this in the past. If you decide to use your Second Amendment right against the United States government, if you believe they are tyrannical, history has shown that the United States government, more often than not, wins that fight. The United States Army is an extremely powerful force. I know several people who have served both currently in the Army and have served in the past. I don't know a single one of them who would ever take up arms against their own citizenry for any reason whatsoever. And most of the issues that we've had in our history that are dealing with uprisings or militias or people trying to fight back against the government they think are tyrannical. Think the Whiskey Rebellion under George Washington would be one example where the Army was actually put it down. You're not going to see it here in our recent history. Incidents like the Ruby Ridge incident and the incident with the Branch Davidians at Waco, Texas, show that even if you have weapons that at the time were considered illegal, and you're able to use those against a government force, in this case, federal government law enforcement officials like the ATF, FBI, and U.S. Marshals, it's not going to end well for you. It's just not. We have mechanisms in place to overthrow tyrannical governments as they are. They're called elections. There are fair and free elections in this country. And you are able to go every 2 years and vote out certain members of the government that we have if you don't agree with the job that they're doing. Your First Amendment rights gives you the power to petition the government, gives you the power to speak out against the government, gives you the ability to bring these issues to the forefront, so much so that using the Second Amendment to try to overthrow a tyrannical government or a government that's not expressing your viewpoints is one that most Americans don't consider a valid viewpoint. So to anybody who says that like this gun protects me from government tyranny, it doesn't, because if it's you versus the United States government and it's coming down to pew-pews, I'm putting my money on the U.S. government.